Myth busting has become extremely popular on my channel since its conception just a couple months ago. We've surpassed the limits everyone assumed for the finals. We've flown across the sky like Superman, breached underneath the map, and even created literal death balls. It has been exhilarating every step of the series. For hitting 5,000 subscribers, I wanted to thank you guys and create something truly special. We have tested over 55 unique myths since the series began. Today, I compiled our top 10 myths of the entire series into one video. Sit back and enjoy. Coming in our number 10 spot is a myth we had back in our first episode from Ali T. Can heavies squeeze into the square holes or vents? Back then, we concluded this was busted, but I think this is one of the few myths I would change my answer. Shortly after uploading that video, I learned heavies can actually pretty easily squeeze through many of the vents on Las Vegas, Seoul, and even Skyway Stadium. All you need is a goo gun, canister, or grenade. If you place goo slightly below any hole or vent, as long as your head isn't too far above the top of the opening, you can crouch walk right through these. I also showed in our first episode a specific hole I found on Monaco that lets heavies crouch walk and slide right through as well. I actually went back to test this and it no longer works on current patch. This surprised me a fair bit since almost all of our myths yielded the same results when I retested. A pretty simple myth, but one I thought was pretty cool, especially after learning this goo tech. Number 9 is from Oppo. In our last episode, bullets shoot from the center of your screen no matter where your crosshair or sight is. This was one I was glad to confirm since there's a lot of confusion around the topic. It can be hard to see this in real time unless you get good footage like we got here and play it in ultra slow motion, but your gun only fires to the center of your screen regardless of where your crosshair or sight shows. Without knowing this, your accuracy could be a lot lower than it should be. Finding this out was incredibly surprising and interesting to me. That's why it deserves number 9 on this list. Ed21, also from last episode, makes our list today with his myth asking if we could build a sky base using goo. This one was just a ton of fun. The only downside is that without custom games or the goo lasting longer, we couldn't play a cash out here. That would have been super funny, but regardless, this was still one of the most fun myths from the series so far. I mean, come on, who doesn't want to build a castle with the homies? Ali T returns to make our number 7 spot where he said 22k is the highest a vault can be worth. This embarked our journey to see if we could unlock vaults 7 and 8 and see how much they're worth. I originally thought the secret 7th vault would be worth over 30,000, but it turns out once you complete vault 6, the next vault that actually spawns in is labeled as vault 1. But what's weird about this is that the 7th vault is still only worth 22,000, so all vaults after 3 and 4 are worth 22,000. Without pursuing this in the myth busting series, I'm not sure anyone would have ever encountered this in game. To spawn in the 7th vault, you have to complete the first 5 to 6 faster than you'd ever like or need to. We basically had to speedrun this from the second the match starts, and that's only barely enough time to pull this off. Another super fun and interesting myth that made our top 10 today. Lexington Farmer made our number 6 spot today with his myth from episode 3. How low can you go off the map with goo? And could you push the cash out on a goo platform off the map? This one snowballed into multiple other insane discoveries, but it started off with us learning you can go a lot lower than most people think. You can go all the way into what looks like the death barrier lines along the bottom of the map. This alone made for a crazy myth, but we then learned you can actually create a goo platform towards the bottom and catch the cash out station from all the way up top. We learned tons of cool properties about the cash out station, like how it will teleport to a safe location when it repeatedly falls off the map. It also can hover to nearby or completely new locations at will. You cannot block the cash out from going any particular way or back up top, as it can phase right through walls and barriers. We went on to discover tons of locations this works on and even successfully defended multiple cash outs off the map. We are now in our top 5 spots for this list, and we're starting off with a super insane myth that came up in our 4th episode from Forge of LA. He was asking if we could get the wrecking ball stuck in or glued to a building and then glitch out the wrecking ball to create some new interaction. This myth immediately went in a completely different direction as we learned how buggy the wrecking ball was. At the time, we were not able to get the wrecking ball inside a building and have it sit still. The goo deflects off of the wrecking ball and also cuts the line to the wrecking ball. The wrecking ball itself also would break its own line too easily. All of this made the original myth too difficult to properly test, but we quickly learned after detaching the wrecking ball that it can be moved around using goo. This allows for one of the most insane collisions in the entire game. You can push the wrecking ball into buildings or floors, and it will completely destroy foundations that no amount of normal explosives or damage ever could. This allowed us to crawl right underneath the map very easily. Thanks to Mr. Pig, I was able to dive a lot deeper into this. We first learned if you use the sword and evasive dash, you can take this way further than you can without. We learned about multiple locations where you can destroy the floors and crawl into vast areas underneath the map. Some even more secluded areas can only be reached if you breach through barriers using the sword or dash. This allowed us to interact with the map, fall completely below the map, or just explore a wide range of space. This is a myth we spent hours exploring and testing. There's undoubtedly more to be discovered here. Unfortunately, like always, I only have so much time before I have to move on and test other myths. I honestly hope this gets patched because it's way too easy to create these holes in the floor, and you can effectively make yourself invincible in game. This is a game-breaking bug, and I've heard something similar was patched during the playtest for the game, so hopefully this gets patched swiftly as well. Regardless, this has to be one of the coolest myths in all of Myth-Busting Mondays. Number 4 on our list goes to Matt Connigan's myth from episode 3. Can you place 3 turrets on a wrecking ball and move it above players to eliminate them? This one, like our last, immediately turned into something we definitely were not expecting. Shortly after placing anything on the wrecking ball, it would start flying all over the place.
Whoa, what is going on?
We literally were not able to place 3 turrets on the wrecking ball before it would send itself flying at Mach 5 off the map.
No, it's leaving. No! No!
We even got to see the wrecking ball send itself straight into the underworld. Now, what's interesting is what happened when we revisited this myth. The crane on current patch is completely bugged out. The crane seems to only let you move it left, but you can also control it from anywhere on the crane, including on top of it. I'm sure any of you who have used the crane the last month or so have noticed this. Moving the crane to the right, up, or down is extremely difficult, although possible. With that being said, on current patch, I was not able to glitch out the wrecking ball like we were able to a month ago. We were actually able to put turrets on the wrecking ball along with all our other placeables. We were even able to spin the crane a full 360 degrees without bugging it out. I'm wondering if maybe while trying to bug fix certain issues with the wrecking ball, they caused this new bug only allowing the crane to move left. On current patch, it definitely seems a little buggy still, but a lot better than it was before. Even though we couldn't recreate the same death ball, this was still one of the funniest and coolest myths from the series. For our number 3 spot, Stealth brought our last myth back to life with a new exciting twist. Stealth's myth from episode 4 was, what happens when you grapple to the wrecking ball while it has turrets attached? He was referring to episode 3 when our death ball contraption would completely glitch out and fly off the map at insane speeds. This myth was so satisfying to pull off because the timing on this one was more difficult than any other myth to pull off. It took us tons of attempts, but we managed to get a couple of clips where I was able to grapple onto the wrecking ball right as it started flying away. This made for some super fun interactions that me and my friends will never forget pulling off together. Easily worth the number 3 spot on our list today. Coming in our number 2 spot on this list is Default with a rather simple myth, can an elevator lift a wrecking ball? Yet another wrecking ball myth, but this one ends up being way more than just a simple myth about elevators or wrecking balls. After learning the elevator can lift the wrecking ball in our last episode, we also quickly learned the wrecking ball has the ability to push players right through walls. This got me curious if we could shove the cash out station through a wall. If any of you have been watching Myth-Busting Mondays since the beginning, you know we have been trying to shove the cash box or cash out station through a wall for quite some time. It is a myth I have attempted repeatedly with multiple different methods and never had luck. But using this new tech, I finally conquered that myth and was successful in pushing the cash out station through the wall. But of course, we are nowhere near done with this myth. I immediately thought, what if we could push ourselves under the map? I mean, if we can force players through walls and force the cash out station through walls, then what's stopping us from going straight through the floor? I mean, even the death ball from our previous myths went under the map. We even effectively got below the map already using the wrecking ball earlier in the video. So what's stopping us from going right through the floor? Lo and behold, we were able to force ourselves right through the floor and fall under the map. Now, in our last episode of Myth-Busting Monday, this is as far as we could take the myth. But after revisiting, I am thrilled to announce we took this even further. I learned you actually don't need a Goo Gun to do this whatsoever. If you guys remember earlier in the video, we used Light's Dash and Sword to maneuver through invisible barriers under the map. We actually used the same exact method here combined with the Wrecking Ball. With just a light nudge from the Wrecking Ball, you can use Sword's charged attack or dash to effortlessly phase through a wall or under any floor. I seriously cannot emphasize how easy this was compared to pulling it off on Heavy. I was able to get under the map a couple dozen times using this method, but this isn't much cooler than what we pulled off last episode. My insane discovery was that using dash, you can actually climb right back into the map after you've already fallen below it. If there's goo on the floor, you can get stuck in the floor and just float in between the building and under the map. If you time your dashes, this could make for a seriously sick and hilarious flank on somebody. Now, of course you guys know I wasn't done, right? I managed to get under the map and place goo using goo grenades as a potential way for me to sit under the map. Unfortunately, the goo placed under the map is insanely buggy and doesn't actually let you climb onto or sit on top of it. The goo grenades also only place a 1x1 goo. I did have a clip where the goo placed the full 2x4, but I'm not quite sure how I did this. I think it needs to collide with some object or other goo already on the map, but that is as far as I could take this myth. What started out as moving a wrecking ball on an elevator turned into me flanking by going under the map and coming back onto the map at a new location. I think it's safe to say this myth deserved our number 2 spot in today's top 10. For our number 1 spot, we have B's ? Myth all the way back from episode 1. Can you topple buildings using goo? At the time, I was starstruck by this discovery, but looking at how far we've come since then, it seems not that crazy anymore. But you can use the Goo Gun to not only topple buildings, but send them flying literally across the map or straight into the hazard. It's such a fun myth to me because of how easy it is to do this. If you have not yet tried this with friends, you are missing out. I cannot beg you guys enough to make a heavy class with a hammer and a Goo Gun and play with some friends. Within a couple minutes of playing, you will destroy skyscrapers, send entire buildings flying everywhere, and just wreak havoc. It is unmatched fun that you simply cannot get in any other FPS game. This was the myth that sparked many others in Myth-Busting Mondays. In my first episode, I didn't have many myths and thought this would be a pretty boring and straightforward one if I'm being honest, but it ended up being one of the most fun and influential myths. This myth sparked hundreds of others in the community to comment their own myths about goo. Everyone was trying to push the limits with goo and explore all the mechanics with the Goo Gun. It was clear you guys were interested with the goo and y'all immediately got me hooked. The one myth that has had the biggest impact on the series, the community, and my channel as a whole has got to be this one. Thank you, B's ? And thank you everyone else for commenting all of your myths and making this series truly something special. Thank you so much for 5K subscribers, and y'all have a fantastic day.